citizen.
Out of many
we are world citizens. Same vision is for equal rights and justice for the people them. What's happening to this beautiful world that we're living in? World citizen, lift up your voices.
Welcome to all of you from around the world to this very special edition of the People-Powered Planet podcast, where each week we have amazing solutionaries from all of the world, while so many other podcasts focus on the deep problems of the world. We focus on the solutionaries, bringing us and raising us to new heights. And I want to, today we're of course going to have a very special tribute honoring the late President Jimmy Carter. We will get to that in a moment. But before I do, I just want to express my incredible gratitude to our co-host and founder of the megameetings.com. The Mega Meeting is the largest gathering of Rotarians online anywhere in the world. It has hosted over 17,000 Rotarians and Peacebuilders from over 2,200 Rotary clubs in over 180 districts. And we are so thrilled to have with us today Özlem. Özlem Özerdem is an amazing peace ambassador who has stood up for human rights around the world, even at great personal sacrifice. He's worked tirelessly day and night to bring together so many Rotarians, and he is really leading the way to create a connection. That's what is the power of Rotary, is connecting people around the world. And so hats off to the wonderful Özlem for co-hosting with us. Now, Melanie Bennett, my producer, and I've put together this wonderful collaboration with him where we've created the website, megameeting.com, and we've joined him in gathering the tribe of humanity coming together for this wonderful opportunity. Now, to start off our podcast, we have a special treat, and that is Jimmy Carter himself. Not alive. We didn't bring him back from the dead, but he had a phenomenal farewell address to the world, to the nation, and to the world. And so now we will start off with a brief clip of Jimmy Carter.
For a few minutes now, I want to lay aside my role as leader of one nation and speak to you as a fellow citizen of the world about three difficult issues: the threat of nuclear destruction, our stewardship of the physical resources of our planet, and the preeminence of the basic rights of human beings. It's now been 35 years since the first atomic bomb fell on Hiroshima. The great majority of the world's people cannot remember a time when the nuclear shadow did not hang over the earth. Our minds have adjusted to it, as after a time our eyes adjust to the dark. Yet the risk of a nuclear conflagration has not lessened. It has not happened yet, thank God. But that can give us little comfort, for it only has to happen once. The danger is becoming greater. As the arsenals of the superpowers grow in size and sophistication, and as other governments, perhaps even in the future dozens of governments, acquire these weapons, it may only be a matter of time before madness, desperation, greed, or miscalculation lets loose this terrible force. In an all-out nuclear war, more destructive power than in all of World War II would be unleashed every second. During the long afternoon it would take for all the missiles and bombs to fall. A World War II every second. More people killed in the first few hours than in all the wars of history put together. The survivors, if any, would live in despair amid the poisoned ruins of a civilization that had committed suicide. The United States and all countries must find ways to control and to reduce the horrifying danger that is posed by the enormous world stockpiles of nuclear arms. The answer lies not just in the attitudes or the actions of world leaders, but in the concern and the demands of all of us as we continue our struggle to preserve the peace. Nuclear weapons are an expression of one side of our human character, but there's another side. The same rocket technology that delivers nuclear warheads has also taken us peacefully into space. From that perspective, we see our Earth as it really is, a small and fragile and beautiful blue globe, the only home we have. We see no barriers of race or religion or country. We see the essential unity of our species and our planet. And with faith and common sense, that bright vision will ultimately prevail. From the bottom of my heart, I want to express to you the gratitude I feel. Thank you, fellow citizens, and farewell.
Wow, wow. World citizen. That's what's on our shirt here and what's our movie's about. Imagine the President of the United States in his farewell address to the entire nation stepping out of that role of a leader of a single nation and instead speaking to us as a world citizen about the threat to our precious home. Every time we try to fight an enemy, we're fighting ourselves because we're leading toward the destruction of this precious, beautiful blue planet. And yet, as he said, there is hope, and there's hope in people gathering together. And that's why we're so thrilled, because that is our focus today on how do we actually overcome war and take us on this path toward a sustainable and beautiful future that Jimmy Carter called for us. And to take us forward in that, we are especially honored to have the president of Rotary International, Stephanie Urchick.
Hello, family of Rotary. I'm so glad that the Carter School is collaborating with us to help Rotary clubs around the world achieve their peace-building potential. As president of Rotary International, I want to salute you for training a new generation of youth to follow in President Carter's footsteps. I join you in honoring President Carter's legacy. He spent his entire life fighting for peace and human rights. With his passing, we recognize and mourn the loss of a great peace builder. In a polarized world, I'm reminded of President Jimmy Carter's inspiring words during his Nobel Peace Prize lecture in December of 2002. The bond of our common humanity is stronger than the divisiveness of our fears and prejudices. His words will ring in my ears as we prepare for the Rotary Peace Conference in Turkey in February to explore ways the Rotary community and our partners can carry on the great peace-building work.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Stephanie, for sharing those thoughts about President Carter and for the wonderful ways that Rotary is carrying on his peace-building efforts. I know you're in the midst of a whirlwind tour there in Africa, carrying on peace-building in communities and touching the lives of people in so many ways. Well, now it's my special privilege to bring you the Dean of the Jimmy and Rosalynn Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution. Dean Alp has spent more than 20 years in very dangerous places around the world doing peace-building work, including Afghanistan, Bosnia-Herzegovina, El Salvador, Indonesia, Kosovo, Lebanon, Liberia, Nepal, the Philippines, Sierra Leone. I mean, it just goes on and on, in Turkey and more. He's written 14 books, including books on child soldiers, books on peace in Turkey, books on the question of human security and conflict transformation. How do we transform conflicts? Not just stop them, transform them into something positive. Well, it's a thrill to welcome you here. Thank you so much for being here, Dean Alp.
It's a great honor and privilege to be able to address people from all over the world, people with passion for peace. And that really matters for us here at the Carter School, because President Carter's life serves as a powerful reminder that one individual's determination to make a difference can indeed change the course of history. His memory is not an end point. It's a call to action, urging us to approach our work with renewed purpose, gratitude, and resolve. So, Arthur, let's carry forward his vision, his compassion, and his unwavering belief in the world.
Yes, Carter truly was an inspiration, and he had that belief that there's that of good in each person, even his opponents. You know, when he had this tough race with Gerald Ford, afterwards he welcomed him collaborating as they carried on the work in the future. So that is definitely a wonderful legacy that you're following. So tell us more about the school.
Absolutely, Arthur. So, Jimmy and Rosalynn Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution is one of the oldest peace studies school in the world. And it started as a small center in the early 1980s with a handful of faculty. It's evolved over the years. First was an institute and a school. And then in 2020, we had the privilege of renaming the school as Jimmy and Rosalynn Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution. And if not the largest, but it's the one of the largest peace studies schools in terms of its student numbers. So in a given year, we have around 500 students studying in our undergraduate, master's, and PhD programs. And that is a big cohort of students studying conflict analysis and resolution and aiming for becoming a peacemaker and peace builder.
Why is this such a especially important time to honor Jimmy Carter?
Considering what's happening in the world right now with all the peace and security challenges we face globally, we really need to remember President Jimmy Carter and his legacy in peacemaking, in humanitarian work, and advocating for justice. This legacy has been for so long in different parts of the world with different communities, from Arlington to Afghanistan, so to speak, right? You know, he really had a huge impact. And I think within that, it's also really important to remember that as we honor his extraordinary life, the profound partnership he shared with Mrs. Rosalynn Carter. And I think that is a very special partnership. It was a teamwork between a husband and a wife, and what they've done in terms of bringing peace and conflict resolution work and connecting that with development work, with humanitarian work, with the social justice work. And that is exceptional, and it's absolutely so clever, if you ask me, because, you know, peace and conflict resolution on its own, if it's not linked with other aspects of life, don't really bring the full benefits to conflict-affected communities. And I think this is why they stand out in the way they did peace and conflict resolution work. And this is why they are deeply respected and appreciated by those different communities throughout the world.
I'm so glad you mentioned the Jimmy and Rosalynn collaboration, because you know, that seems to be so key in the world right now, that we need to move away from the dominator society to women and men collaborating together, a partnership. And in what ways? Tell us a little more about their partnership and how you see that partnership across the genders and across the races and divides, moving us forward in this crucial time for humanity to thrive and survive.
Yes, absolutely. The key word there is partnership. So as we all know that what we can do individually for peace and conflict resolution, and especially if you have the skills and talent and also you know, power to have an impact, that's great as an individual. But to really scale up the impact of conflict resolution work, you have to work with others. whether this is across genders, across age groups, across races, across countries, across communities, across institutions. I don't believe in peace work that can be just done as an individual. It is so important, it's so valuable, it's so wonderful. But it really starts to become meaningful if you work with others. And the reason for that is that peace building or peace is not just an end product, it's a process. So when you work with others in partnership, in fact, in that process, you are building peace as well as aiming to build peace at the end, right? So we need to make that distinction. So obviously, Rotary International, Rotarians, and what they are able to do as 1.4 million members throughout the world with 34,000 clubs. That is, for example, one of the most meaningful partnerships we have here at the Carter School. And we started this a couple of years ago. And we are hoping that this will turn into a strategic partnership with Rotary International soon. And within that, what we discovered is that here, two partners, the Carter School and Rotary, coming together and really supporting each other in their strengths in order to magnify their impact in peace work and what they can do individually. So, in short, one, in peace work, if you want to magnify your work, work with others. Two, partnership means is peace building as a process, right? You need to remember that. And number three is that global challenges of peace and security are such that we really need to build bridges of solidarity and partnership. We need each other. We need to know that we are not on our own in this work, because peace building work, as we all know, at times is very demanding. It can be quite demoralizing. It can be really, a big pressure on your values, your ethics. So working with others is really good for your well-being. And so for all reasons, I absolutely agree that the word partnership is the zest of peace building, and we should really value it.
I'm so thrilled that you've talked about partnership. Tell us more about the Rotary-Carter School Collaboration, how that came about and where you see that going in the future and how that can help Rotary clubs around the world.
Right. I believe in mavericks and what mavericks can achieve, individuals with passion for peace. So our story really has started with one of these mavericks, one of these Rotarians called David Fishman. David was a Rotarian in DC area, Washington, DC area. And he approached me one day saying that, look, Alp, Rotary and the Carter School should partner, should work together. And there's a great potential. And I said, well, yeah, why not? I think that sounds really great. And let's think about this. But in order to pursue the matter and to make it happen, you got to have that passion, right? So almost every day, David used to ring me or send me a message, like saying, do you know that this and that meeting taking place in Rotary next week, or this and that? So he really captured my attention and he really brought me in the midst of the Rotary peace world. And unfortunately, we lost David in 2023. But before he passed away, he decided to give us a gift to initiate the Rotary-Carter School Partnership for Peace. and that was the seed funding he and his wife Mary Clark provided, and to get things rolling and for the Carter School and Rotary to get to know each other, we organized a series of meetings over a year. These were big workshops at our retreat center point of view. We invited some key Rotarians as well as representatives of academia and civil society just to really talk about what would be that meaningful partnership look like, right? Because what you don't want is that to end up just with an MOU, but doesn't mean anything. It's not reciprocal. It's not really proving to come up with, transformational ideas. So we involved people like Al Jubitz, who is a very influential Rotarian, and he was really passionate about the project. So cutting a long story short, at the end of that getting to know each other process, all the workshops, we decided that, well, let's have 1 year memorandum of understanding to focus on two main things. One is that let's have some peace building acceleration projects so that we can actually develop some modalities of how to mobilize Rotary clubs and Rotarians around the world for peace building work in partnership with the Carter School. So that's number one. And number two was, what would be the role of the Carter School in education, in the education and training of Rotarians in peace building work? So, and there are two dimensions. One is that, like, the dispute resolution within clubs, and how the Rotary clubs can work and function more effectively, but also really kind of upskilling Rotarians in the peace building work that they undertake, through their projects. And so with those two main objectives, back in March 24, we initiated our partnership, and we decided to go for 3 peace building projects. One is in Cyprus, the other one is in Sri Lanka, and the third one is here in Baltimore. And the focus and subject matters of these projects are very interesting, but these are not just us implementing projects. Let me repeat, what we are trying to do is to build modalities of mobilizing Rotarians and Rotary clubs for peace building work. So in the case of Cyprus, our focus is, what we can do for peace building in divided societies. So how we can build bridges of, partnership between Greek and Turkish Cypriots, so that track two kind of peace building work at the community level. How can we bring Rotarians, from both sides to work together for the future of the island, for peace in Cyprus? So as part of that, for example, back in November, we brought 24 Rotarians and civil society representatives from Cyprus to Northern Virginia, to our retreat center point of view. We had 1 week of dialogue session, get them really an understanding of, like, what would be that partnership, both sides of the island working together, look like, and also what Rotarians can do about that, right? So it was amazing experience. I think they felt that, this was probably one of the most impactful civil society initiatives over the last 4 or 5 years. They went back home, and now they are building their own projects at the club level and exploring ways of working across the line, across the other side, right? This is the modality in Cyprus. In Sri Lanka, the focus is slightly different. We are focusing on young people and the mobilization of arts, and particularly music in peace building. And because in many parts of the world, I think this will be a very accessible way of undertaking peace building work for Rotarians. So we really want to build a modality that this could be replicable in other places. And finally, the third peacebuilding modality project we have here in Baltimore, we are looking at urban peacebuilding. So with all the issues of crime and insecurity and related matters, what we want to do is that, what roles and activities Rotarians and Rotary clubs can undertake their own environments in countries like US or UK, France, and in other places where urban conflict is a critical issue, right? So cutting a long story short, those three projects will give us an understanding of, how to mobilize Rotarians and Rotary clubs in peacebuilding work. And one of our peace labs works on the narratives of peace and conflict. So obviously, media and the films and podcasts, all tools of narrative building and sharing are interest for us.
I'm especially excited that you mentioned the Narrative Lab. This is the central focus of what we've done. Melanie Bennett and myself, she produced and I directed the film The World Is My Country, which features the extraordinary Gary Davis, world citizen #1, and his amazing experiences with Einstein and Eleanor Roosevelt. And I can't wait till you see the film and can let me know about it. But what I'd specifically like to ask is, I would love to come maybe do a class with the Narrative Lab. I can talk to them about peace building as a narrative and how even in documentaries it's essential to use the hero's journey story structure and how to build that into even documentary films and so on.
Why don't we think about an event in which you and Melanie can address our students, our faculty, our community about narrative building and the role of media and filmmaking and your experience with that. That would be really phenomenal.
We would love to do that. Yes, that is fantastic, and we will follow up with you.
Look, I don't have meetings like this very often in which that's so many ideas like kind of together, and I want to wish you all the best with the program, and hopefully we'll be in touch on all these different ideas and start a big transformation in our own way.
Thank you so much, Dean Alp. Very honored that Dean Alp could join us. I've had a number of discussions with him. Now we come to the part of our show with Charles Davidson, and we're very thrilled that you are here with us. Welcome, Charles.
Thank you so much, Arthur. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, now, Charles is Director of Research and Practice at the Center for Peace Technology there at the Jimmy and Rosalynn Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution, right there at George Mason University in the Washington, D.C. area. Welcome so much to our show. I really look forward to having you follow up further on some of the questions that Dean Alp touched on.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to do it.
So the first thing I was struck by is that he mentioned the power of mavericks and how important that is. And I was especially pleased that Jimmy Carter mentioned world citizenship. Now, Dean Alp said he was going to watch our film, but I understand that you actually got to watch our story about a maverick, Gary Davis, who lived for 65 years as a citizen of no nation, only the world, and he touched on some of the issues that you're dealing with. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you see as the role of mavericks and how this might be helpful to our collaboration?
Yeah, I mean, Dean Alp put it great. I was sort of waiting with bated breath to see what he would say when you asked him that question, because there are systems that we have to, as peace builders, that we're going to have to challenge. Conflict and its entrenchment and the challenges that it takes to overcome conflict for the sake of peace building. These systems are strong and they benefit people in power, right? And so if you're going to make change at a global, community, personal level, you're going to have to challenge existing systems. And in order to do that, it takes people. who might otherwise be identified as mavericks to be the first one to step out and say, I'm going to live differently, you know? And when I watched the movie, I, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And all this had happened before I was even born, you know? And I waited watching him, like, how is he going to be received with this? Like, he's just going to be arrested, you know? And I think that there was a little bit of fate involved with how things played out, especially in Paris in the beginning. But ultimately, if you're going to challenge systems, it takes people breaking the status quo, even in our business, even in our industry of peace building.
Yes, and I hope that your students take that helps inspire them in their lives, because you know it's amazing how every major change that's happened in the world is usually started with a maverick who's first laughed at and then has to face arduous challenges, but then finally perseveres and helps lift humanity. How do you see training a new generation of Jimmy Carters and world citizens and people who can take that kind of a forward-thinking role in moving our planet forward?
Yeah, I mean, so it's really distinct though. Again, what following off what the dean said, there's a very big difference between a maverick and a lone wolf. You know what I'm saying? And so once a path forward is established, working alone for the sake of pride, ego, or an unwillingness to play with others, you know, is a recipe for destruction, right? Of whatever path you may have established. So it's so incredibly important to not only team up to ascertain those different various dynamic viewpoints. You put more minds together. It becomes in peace building with teamwork a 1 + 1 = 3 scenario, right? The teamwork seems to deliver results well beyond what might be expected. And for me, you know, training the next generation is absolutely key to any peaceful future that we have, because I think watching, you know, Gary's life play out, that you know, the issue of he wasn't always going to be around, and if his ideas were going to perpetuate, he was going to have to imbue others with these ideas. Is sort of the moral of the story, right? Like, you guys have a very powerful ending at the end of the film where you're seeing this momentum from children and adults and everyone, like, saying that they're world citizens, and it's evidence that he not only instructed but inspired the next generation of world citizens to do so. And as peace builders, you know, that's our job if we want the results of our work to make any long impactful difference. I mean, I'm sitting here in the same room as Al Jubitz. He's doing just that. He's empowering people for the next generation of peace builders, and so many of you are doing the same thing. I wish I knew everyone in this room as well as Al, so that I could be even more inspired. But I think that that's key.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned teamwork, because that is exactly what this Rotary-Carter School Collaboration is doing. And we're so honored that Mary Clark and her husband, that they helped launch this whole effort, David Fishman, and so honored that Al Jubitz, who we'll hear from toward the end of the meeting, has helped move this whole great process forward. You have a specific project of heading the Rotary-Carter School Collaboration. Following up on what Stephanie Urchick said, tell us more about how you see that evolving and how you see that helping Rotary clubs around the world.
Yeah. Well, you know, Arthur, I've been in peace building my entire adult life. Like, I when I was a young guy, I was waiting tables in Northwest Arkansas, and I had a dream and a vision to become a peace builder. And my mentor at the time said, you know, what do you know about peace building? And I said, I don't know anything much at all. And he said, well, then you need to leave and you need to not come back until you know more, right? And so as a result, I've seen peace building from the ground up, living with local people, hearing their ideas, learning how to equip and accompany local ideas around the world for the sake of peace building, where it's a bottom-up approach instead of a top-down. You find that the solutions are so much more ready, impactful, sustainable if you listen to local community members first, right? And that is why when I think about the gravity of what we are, of what we have been gifted with in this collaboration, it is, I say it sort of reverently, that this is perhaps the most likely chance that I have had thus far in my life to change the world, right? And I don't mean me. I mean this team, this collaboration, because we're dealing with the world's largest civil society organization, and in my opinion, the world's best school for conflict analysis and resolution in the world. You put these two elements together with respect to local communities, which is what Rotary is. It's a collaboration of all of these independent forces of community togetherness and peace, right? And so if we do our job at this collaboration, and hopefully it becomes a strategic partnership, right? We have this ability to take all the things I learned as a young man and turn it into a global movement, which really actually could change the world in the same way that we saw Gary so boldly stating in his movement.
Woohoo! That's so exciting, what you just said, and we're thrilled to be a part of doing that with you. That just so warms my heart. Tell me a little bit more. You've worked in many of the countries that the Rotarians are on from this meeting and from others. Tell us about the peace building work you've personally done around the world and how that touched your life.
Yeah, I mean, so as I said, my experience has been largely in learning how to listen, right? Like if we as outsiders from relatively peaceful countries are going to have the chutzpah to go into other places and say we're here to help, right? Then it is our duty to learn how to listen to local conflicts so that we can learn from the people who have to wake up every single morning and think to themselves, if I had the ability, how would I prevent my community from going to war today? Right? It's that mom of 3 young boys whose oldest son might get recruited into the militias today in the Eastern Congo, right? She's thinking through what might prevent him from going into the militias. And so that's been the heart of my peace building experience thus far. And so I've been privileged to work alongside, to help equip and network and to fund programs and projects and research agendas in places like Northern Iraq, Afghanistan, Uganda, Burundi, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Colombia, Lebanon, and other places. And my work varied in most of those places. But the one thing that tied it all together was that I was forced from the beginning to recognize that unless my work was going to accompany what was already happening in these places, that it was going to be a dead end. And so I say I've done peace building. It's a misnomer. I've accompanied peace building practice in places all over the world.
Wow. Accompanying peace building practices all over the world. That is so key. And that listening is absolutely what we need to do. And I'm thrilled to be listening to you and learning from you as you're telling us about these wonderful programs and opportunities. Well, I want to turn a little bit from that personal experience to the future. And that is you're heading this brand new program called Peace Technology. Now, I know it started off as peace engineering, and my dad, as I was growing up, used to say, you need to be a peace engineer. You're not just to pray for peace, march for peace, call for peace, but actually engineer. What are the tools? What are the levers that we can use to actually build peace in the world? So I've kind of grown up as a peace engineer and see that as part of our key role here in the ongoing People Powered Planet podcast. Tell us a little bit more. Most people don't think of peace as tech. What is peace tech, and how do you see that evolving out of the research and work of the Carter School?
Yeah. So peace tech, the idea of peace tech is not new, right? We've been doing it ever since somebody experienced a land use conflict 3,000 years ago, right? And they thought to themselves, if my cows encroach on this farmer's land, there's going to be a fight, right? And so they had to think to themselves, but there's a river over there these cows can't cross, but that's the only way out. And so that first guy that built a ramp over that river so that their cows could cross and not encroach on that other farmer's corn, that's peace tech. And you think parsimoniously about this, right? Like when I was in the military, it was keep it simple, stupid. Occam's razor, the simplest solution is probably the best. We are planting from the ground up in that way. Like peace technology is the intersection of good peace ideas that are enhanced by technological development. And so we're not talking about, the global reformation of artificial intelligence to serve peace processes. Not what we're talking about, right? Even though I would love to chat with you if you have ideas about that. But rather, it's how do we encapsulate these local ideas? How do we capture local ideas for peace, like I've talked about today? And how do we enhance them with known resources and technology, both through innovation of process and the invention of new ideas, right? And so peace tech, while it's sort of debuting on the field, it's not necessarily a new idea. And the last thing I'll say about this is that I think one of the challenges that peace tech has experienced in the past is that it's sort of tempting to be a solutions-led enterprise, right? Like we come up with this really cool idea and then go find a problem to apply it to. I think that's the wrong attitude to have. Rather, I think we need to be detectives and look for problems first. So be a problem-led industry that tech can then serve. In that way, I think that you are the most efficient, effective, and sustainable in peace technology.
Well, one of the problems that peace tech can serve is one of the problems the fact that we have 50 million stateless people, some 50 million, there's various estimates, people who don't have an identity, can't get out of refugee camps, can't even get medical care because they don't have an identity. And for years, the World Service Authority featured in our film, The World is My Country, and we'll hear shortly from David Gallup, who heads the evolution of that into the World Citizen Government. For years, they've been putting out a self-sovereign identity document called a world passport, but now they want to bring that into the digital area, and we'll get that onto that in a few minutes. But tell us a little bit more about some of the possibilities of one of the technological approaches being how do we provide a collaborative digital identity for the stateless people of the world.
Yeah, yeah. So regardless of whatever piece of paper that people have, they have an identity, right? They wake up in that morning and they are the individual imbued with their mind, body, and soul, right? The challenge is that when we begin to verify these identities with government papers, passports, licenses, et cetera, right? It's a way for the powers that be keep us organized and identify us, right? And there's nothing, I don't find anything wrong with that because you have to be able to have sovereignty over yourself. The challenge is that so many people, like you said, experience almost like a sale to the highest bidder of people who want to manipulate their identities toward unpeaceful ends. For instance, in places that I work, you have minors, children, who don't have that birth certificate, who don't have that passport, who will then have their identities manipulated by the powers that be to pick up weapons and join armed groups to fight on behalf of political or economic interests, right? And what we found is that a lot of times armed groups will say, we don't recruit children. But they do. And what people at the United Nations have told me is that the way they get around it is they say, well, we didn't know they were minors. We didn't know they were children. There is no proof, right? And that's because they don't have the solidity of that recognizable identity document. And one of the reasons is that even if they did start out with a sheet of paper that says they are this person, it can just be set on fire, or shredded or whatever. And so digital identity, this idea that you've posited, I think is a new wave of consideration of the rigidity, the resilience of identification. Because if you and this is an idea that we've been working on in discussions with interstate organizations and other companies, that if you put identity record onto a rigid system like blockchain technology, then it can't be destroyed. Because all it would take is the child's mother having a device that says, here's my son's identity. He is a child. He's not going to be recruited into your group. The armed group member destroys the phone, but doesn't destroy the identity. You simply pick up another phone, you log back into the system, and there's the identity again, right? So creating this sort of indestructible digital identity, I think, is a fantastic idea, and I certainly hope that David and his team pursues it.
Wow, indestructible. That's kind of his key for, what the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is all about, that these are indestructible, inalienable rights, and we need to find ways to have the tools to be able to prove that. Well, I look forward to so many more discussions with your school about peace technology, including, I'd love to see us develop an app that takes all these conflict resolution tools and builds them into a way that in Zoom meetings, we could have an add-on where we bring out that kind of menu of peace technologies of how do we do revolutionary conversations, of how do we speak across political divides, and somehow evolve some new tools for helping enable us to come together across the kind of divided world that we're facing right now. Tell us briefly about that, and then I'm going to move to your urban program.
Sure. Yeah, so fantastic idea, by the way. Real-time conflict resolution assistance in a thing like Zoom is a great idea. That one of the cool things that we've done at the Center for Peace Tech in our first year, our Genesis year, is really to just listen. Like I always say, like we want to go out there and listen to ideas that have already been pursued, so that we're not reinventing the wheel, so that we can utilize our resources to equip and help grow existing ideas that are already being put into play. And these sort of real-time conflict resolution apps are aplenty. But for instance, Dr. Karina Korslina at our school is just got done working with our center to develop a tech oriented conflict resolution app for her theories. But the cool thing is that you have the same piece of technology, but then you rewire it for a different context, and it becomes something just like what you're saying. And so these types of ideas are a lot closer to fruition than you may ever imagine. And one of the reasons why we established the Center for Peace Tech was to become a hub for people to come to us with ideas like that and say, I have this idea. It might not be original, but it might be original in this context. And that's how we want to equip ideas like what you just said. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's fantastic. Well, now I'd actually like to have us you continue, but also to bring Dr. Arthur Romano on with us, because he had Dean Alp mentioned the program you have in Baltimore that is developing new modalities for bringing together people in urban environments into breakthroughs in peace technology. And one of the reasons I'm especially interested in welcoming him is that we developed one of those tools you've mentioned, a modality called Bully Proof, which is a 10-step conflict resolution built around an acronym that spells out the word bully, bully proof. And it is to, the first step in bully proof is to bust out of the conflict, come at things a different way. That's B for bust out bear. And then there's understanding unicorn, who teaches us to understand what's triggering our hot buttons in the other person. And then the big one is just what you're talking about, listening links. Sometimes there's more power in listening than in lashing out. And then loving lion, who looks for the good in the other, and yin yang yak, who understands the power of opposites and balancing our male and female sides. There's 10 characters all in all. And I'd like to talk about how maybe we might collaborate, because we have been doing this program as a rap and roll opera, as working with gang kids, people in detention centers and others. And we'd love to explore how we might continue this in maybe collaboration with your urban programs. So could you speak for a minute on that? And then we'll invite Arthur to come and join us. The other Arthur.
Carter Arthur.
Carter Arthur.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you, Dr. Romano is our specialist in this. And so most of the time should be spent listening to him. I'll say from my angle, as somebody who works on a global scale, my particular focus as a scholar and as a practitioner is in areas affected by civil war, and so often intercommunal civil war is enacted by young men who are seeking solidity in their identities and searching for sources of respect. And the way that plays out in violence, especially intergroup violence in places that are affected by civil war, is just so incredibly similar to what we see in cities across our nation, where disaffected young men and sometimes young women are looking for that belonging. They're looking for that resiliency. They're looking for that meaning, that purpose in their life. And gangs will often say, come, belong to us. You will mean something here, right? And so there's a distinct overlap both in my sentiment, but also in scholarship, which talks about this, that what I do in my work and what you hear about in places that are described as urban in the United States is a lot of it is very, very similar. And so I just kind of wanted to preface it with that, but please do talk to Dr. Romano more.
Yes, Dr. Romano, if you could unmute yourself, we'd love to have you just take a couple of minutes to tell us a little bit about your program and how you do exactly what Charles said, that intersection of what's going on in the inner city youth, which is what we found, the same thing, that really is the same thing on the global level. We see nations acting like schoolyard bullies. There seems to be an intersection all the way from the top to the bottom on this. I want you to tell us a couple of minutes, and then we're going to have a whole special program, a future mega meeting with you. But let's hear first about your program briefly today.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation, and I just want to start by just taking a moment to pause and say, look at what an incredible gathering this is. 300 people from all over the world. Sometimes we're so future focused that we can miss with the moment that we're actually in, and we see some of the promise and potential of what Rotary can do in a moment like this, in the power and potential of people-to-people peace building. And I want to say hello to my international and global Rotarian family. I'm a professor at the Carter School and the director of our program on urban peace building, but I'm forever a Rotary World Peace Fellow. First generation college student, the first scholarship that I received to do peace work, and it completely transformed my life. The people I work with brought the deep research of peace building into this work. And so in this work where we're supporting urban peace building, we're doing a project in collaboration with Rotary, bringing together peace educators, violence prevention educators from across the city of Baltimore. I'm assisting really the main leader of that, Dr. Nawal Rajesh, who's a recent graduate of our school, who started a peace camp in Baltimore, as many of you know. Today, we're hearing a lot of men. It happens to be men speaking about peace, but we know women are powerful leaders of peace. So if you tune into that podcast, you will mostly hear her speaking and a little bit of me speaking. So that's encouragement for some of you. I hope to see you there. And so Nawal started this, co-founded a peace camp 15 years ago. And many of the most violence affected children in the city from communities that are deeply impacted have gone through the peace camp, become counselors themselves. And she's created this, and they have created this intergenerational impact. Somebody talked about engineering. Arthur, I think you mentioned your father talked about engineering. That's how I view peace. And so I like to say this about peace building from an engineering perspective. A hidden level of peace building infrastructure is peace education. We often don't think about that. That's the capacity development. That's the transformational foundation. So in simple terms, what we're doing in Baltimore is we're bringing peace educators together, formal and informal, from across the city together, to find out and promote them working with each other more, and to find out what they need in terms of educational resources and support, and to get them that support free of charge in terms of professional development. And then we're also going to take a small group of peace educators and violence prevention educators in Baltimore and bring them abroad to a partner city so they can connect. Many people don't get to leave the city. Many of you will know peace educators are not well paid. And we're going to connect them with peace builders for inspiration and networking abroad. So why is Rotary a partner in this? Local Rotarians. Why do we need local Rotarians? And if you're in a different city in the United States, or you're working internationally, and this urban peace building work speaks to you, I hope we can be in touch.
Thank you. Well, we're going to have a whole special program with you. Now, I see in the chat someone asked what was the podcast. Yes. So This mega meeting is a collaboration with the People Powered Planet podcast, and we'll put in the link right there. If you sign up at theworldismycountry.com/club, you'll hear about our ongoing People Powered Planet podcast. So now, I want to recognize really the key person who helped found all this, and is actually one of the key people who has gotten our movie "The World Is My Country" on PBS stations across the country. The fabulous peace builder Al Jubitz. Could you just say a couple of words? Well, first, we're just so grateful to you, and then maybe you have a question for Charles.
Thank you very much, Arthur, and congratulations on this mega meeting and the quality of the speakers. I'm very impressed with the Carter School. I'm tired of violence. I am tired of watching young Black people getting shot by police in the United States in the back, and that led me to being getting more proactive in what I would call proactive peace building. So Arthur, thank you for your work. Charles, thank you for your work. Dean Alp mentioned that we need to practice listening. I just want to remind all of us Rotarians that generally speaking, we are very well connected. We generally abhor violence. We want to help others. We're good at convening people, all stratas of society. We listen and we begin a process. And we stay with that process until the peace is discovered by the stakeholders. In a way, it's not rocket science, but the academic community provides us with peace science, studying cases that work, why they work, processes that work, why they work. So those that think the only way to resolve a conflict is through violence need to listen to you as you remind them, no, peace is really practical. It's not expensive. It's long-term when done properly. And we have a great ally in the Carter School to teach us how to do that. The origin of this collaborative, David Fishman, Mary Clark, thank you, got my attention because I was tired of the violence. I had to step it up a notch and be proactive, intentional in creating peace. All of us on this call can be more intentional in smelling the smoke. Where is it coming from? What conflicts are unresolved in your region? And then to step toward that conflict and to gather others and to begin the listening process. We can resolve this. We know how to do this. And many Rotarians have prevented wars that you never heard about because they were prevented. So in the spirit of peace on earth by 2030, no more war, no more nuclear weapons. We have work to do, and we have a great partner in the school, in the Carter School. So thank you, Arthur, for this opportunity.
Oh, thank you, Al, and we are so honored. Now I'd like to turn very briefly to David Gallup, who worked very closely with Gary Davis and runs the World Citizen Government in Washington, D.C., which is essentially people from the ground up saying, we are citizens of the world, as Jimmy Carter said, and we have a right to identify ourselves as citizens of the world, and that gives us a power to help make change in the world. David, tell us, go ahead with your comment or question.
Charles, I want to say thank you so much for giving us the lens of technology to build peace, to give us new tools to build peace, to become world peacemakers. And I'd like to mention that World Service Authority and Citizens for Global Solutions are launching World Citizen Clubs, which are student-run clubs on high school and university campuses around the world to help students become world peacemakers. This can be another tool in this process. And I'm really proud to say that you should know that George Mason University has actually one of the first student-run World Citizen Clubs on its campus with service, learning, and volunteer opportunities for George Mason students, and many of the events that they've had have been really highly attended. So what I'd love to see happen is students from the Carter School who are already interested in peace issues and world relations is to have those students come and join the club, perhaps do a collaborative event or several collaborative events over the next several years with you and with the Carter School.
Absolutely. I mean, it's to me, to start a peace building movement in these local areas is sort of like something that Dr. Mark Gopin taught me when I was a PhD student at the Carter School that I'm now a professor at, and he talked about that we were in the Israel-Palestine area on a study abroad trip, and he showed us this field, and he's like, imagine a field with one flower in it, right? And then two flowers appear, and then three, and you don't get a field of flowers without the single individual flower blossoming first, right? And so, to me, your endeavor of planting these clubs all over our nation and the world is the only way to cover the field with flowers is to do them one at a time. And so, I admire your resilience and your stick-to-itiveness and carrying Gary's vision forward. And I certainly hope that more people will hear about the virtues behind the world citizen concepts at my university and beyond.
Thank you. I'd like to turn to Grace Van Zyl, who is the chairman of the Rotary Action Group for Peace. This is a key group bringing Rotarians together from across the world. We hope she'll put it in the chat so you can all join the Rotary Action Group for Peace. Grace, go ahead.
Thank you, Arthur. I'm going to make more of a comment. Very, very inspired by all the speakers, and my fellow directors of the action group are on the call as well. And you all know that Al is the founder of that Rotary Action Group for Peace. And I had the privilege of working with David Fishman, and that's how I learned about the Carter School. But I'd like to just make a comment based on what Charles said. Peace is simple. Let's not overcomplicate it. Let's educate ourselves. Let's learn to listen, but listen to understand, not listen to respond. And I think that's where a lot of us go wrong. The Rotary Action Group for Peace is well positioned to take that collaboration and partnership forward with the Carter School. We are building peace builder clubs all over the Rotary world. We have some peace chapters where we're trying to bring or instill in Rotarians to be more intentional about peace and take action and approach every project that they approach with an understanding of how do I create sustainable peace in that community. And I think we often overcomplicate peace. Peace is within everybody. It starts with each one of us. Let's become better peace builders. Let's collaborate and let's do this together. And I'm just honored to be on this platform, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Grace. And next, I'd like to turn to Dorothy Gilmore, who is a prominent Rotarian in Australia. Go ahead, Dorothy. Do you have a brief question for Dr. Davidson?
Yes, thank you very much, Arthur. And I'll let you know that it's 5 o'clock in the morning here on Friday, so we're a bit ahead of you all. I do have a question, please, for Charles. I'm sort of curious how you came to support the Jimmy Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution, and what were some of your early inspirations?
Well, the question would be better worded as, how did the Carter School come to support me? I as I mentioned earlier in my chat, when I was 20 years old, I was in so it was actually in La Paz, Bolivia, that I encountered this phenomenon of children who were being imprisoned alongside their family members in a place called San Pedro prison. Whether or not that's still happening, I actually don't know, but it was true 20 years ago. And I was burdened spiritually, emotionally, almost physically with this idea that children were paying the price of their parents' crimes. And this was early in the day of search engines. And so I came home to the United States and I Googled that idea. I typed in children paying the price of their parents' crimes. And the search engine returned news story after news story after news story of war-affected countries where children and the vulnerable populations of the world were paying the ultimate prices for other people's decisions to go to war. And that was it. Like I from that search, that return, I took a sheet of notebook paper. I'll never forget doing this. I took a sheet of notebook paper out and a pencil, and I wrote down the name of every single war-affected country that I could find on the internet, which was much harder to do back then because like the internet wasn't nearly as useful 20 years ago. And I took a nail and a hammer and I nailed that sheet of notebook paper into my door frame. With the intention that every single day, at least once a day, I would walk through that door to my kitchen and see that list and let it continue to impact me. And that's when I went to my professional mentor at the time and I said, I think I want to be a peace builder. And he said, I don't think you know what that means. And so he said, you need to leave Arkansas and you need to not come back until you do know what that means. And so that's when I started traveling to war affected countries every time I could scrape together enough money for a plane ticket. And so my career from the age of 20 sort of developed after that. And I launched peace building programming in places that I could accompany local peace builders in places like Kurdistan and Uganda, Kurdistan in northern Iraq, that is. But then, it really hit me. Like you can't just learn from the school of hard knocks. If you're going to do this, like if you're going to be a serious peace builder, like formal education is going to be key. And so I applied to my dream program. At the time it was called SCAR, the School for Conflict Analysis and Resolution, what is now the Carter School. I applied just so that I could get the rejection letter and just know that I tried. Like at least I can say I tried, right? But instead, they not only did they admit me, they gave me a scholarship to get my PhD. And so I finished in 4 years, and I went to my associate dean at the time, and with this idea in my head that like, yo, there's nowhere to go but down from here with regard to the excellence and the standard of scholarly education in peace. And so I went to my associate dean. I'm like, I don't care what it is. I don't want to leave, but I need you to pay me to stay. And so I believe the actual job was like a part-time admissions counselor for graduate students making $20 an hour part-time with a PhD. And I said, I'll take it. I just don't want to leave. But I was convinced that if I just came to work every day and crushed it, right, and made myself invaluable to the peace scholarly community, that I would continue to be offered opportunities professionally to impact from the Carter School. And, the story's too long to tell from there, but I'm still here.
Thank you. Thank you. What a moving story about watching the kids. Next, I want to turn to another outstanding Rotarian, Lise Van Weingarten. Yes, you've also been on a mega meeting in the past. Please introduce yourself and go ahead with your question.
Yes, I'm a Peacemaker Gift Initiative advisor by the Rotary Foundation. So I collect the money to get scholars for peace. So I'm very pleased to hear about the Carter School. And in that respect, I heard a lot of new things today, so that's very wonderful. And I have two questions, and I think they are more combined to that. How can we continue the peace legacy of Carter? And what can we do as Rotarians for the future peace leaders?
I got inspired to dig into Carter's life more, obviously since his death. I think a lot of people have, right? Man, this guy, he would just go do the thing, right? Like he noticed a problem and he would just do something about it. And he did it in the face of what he knew would be challenges, reputationally, communally for himself. Right. It appears from his autobiography that he didn't even really know what it meant to want to be racist growing up in Georgia, because he had Black friends even from his early childhood. And so when he was met with the challenge, later on in governance and in business in Georgia, people told him, like, if you don't come over to our side, as it were, we're going to ruin you financially. And essentially, I mean, Carter gave him the rhetorical response of like, bring it on. And then he became president. So it's like he carried that with him into his presidency. And if you see just the quiet ways that he went about conflict resolution, there's an incredibly interesting story about Idi Amin, who he criticized publicly, and Carter criticized publicly for his human rights violations, and Amin brought every American citizen in Uganda to him in Entebbe, including roughly 100 American missionaries. And he detained them and told Carter, until you apologize, I'm going to start murdering one of these missionaries every single day until you apologize. And you know what Carter did? He resolved the conflict. It involved the king of Saudi Arabia, but they didn't lose one missionary that day. And so he has this quiet reputation of solving conflicts boldly and creatively that I would hope to mimic if I was ever in public service, for sure, but certainly as an individual. And how to support peace leaders, giving people opportunity. We crave a diversity of thought and approach in peace and conflict resolution, application, and in scholarship. And so, what you guys do, what Rotary does, what Arthur said you did for him, like you are already launching careers in peace, and equipping and empowering aspiring peace builders to do what they do best. And so my only exhortation is, please don't stop, and please grow it as much as you can to continue to invest in future leaders, both in treasure, but also in time. We need mentors. We need people to accompany our journeys. I just sort of winged it, right? I was gone. I'm going to Iraq. I'll see you later. I didn't have anybody really there to nurture and challenge me. And I think it bred in me, a particularly unique frame of reference for peace building, but not everybody should operate like that. And I think having mentors set up is a fantastic idea.
That's so great what you mentioned about Jimmy Carter. Gary Davis also acted on that same crisis. He had his World Court of Human Rights issue an edict ordering Idi Amin to release the journalist, and they actually got a response back where he actually was intimidated by this World Court, which actually had issued this order to him. There's a whole chapter on that in Gary's book. We can share that with you later. But anyway, I noticed that Al has his hand raised again. Were you wanting another quick comment before we move on to the next question?
I wanted to answer Lee's question about what funding things could happen. I think once the Carter Rotary collaboration becomes a partnership, which may take another 6 months or a year, that the Rotary Foundation should have a special peace building fund that would support these conversations, these listening sessions, these collaborators coming together, the stakeholders coming together. Right now it's being privately funded, these gatherings, and to have longevity and sustainability, I think a special fund. The beauty of the Rotary-Carter Collaborative is that together, Carter provides vetting service. Vetting meaning, is this project shovel ready? Are they doing the right things? Are Rotarians involved? Are Rotary Peace Fellows involved? And then if all the answers are yes, then let's go fund it. The let's go fund it, I think the Rotary Foundation has a great opportunity to stand up and have special Carter type grants that are fast, are over a long period of time, because peace building takes years, not weeks or months. It takes years to build the trust in these regions. So I'm hoping the Rotary Foundation will be a partner as well. And I hope that was clear and understandable.
Yeah, and to add to that, what Al just said, right now it is privately funded, but the one thing we do have a green light on, we're still a collaboration, we're not a partnership. But the one thing we do have a green light on is that if you, and I'm talking to the whole audience here, if you or your club have access to a set of funds where you would want to launch a peace building program in your area, or in an area that you have an affinity for or want to see impacted, we do have a green light now to do peace building projects between our two organizations. And so that's the one area where if you want to invest now, and you would be amazed at how much money it doesn't take to launch something of great affect.
Wonderful. Wow. Thank you. And we're getting close to when Charles is going to have to leave in 10 more minutes. But I do want to bring in a few more questioners quickly. I have Quanta Dawn Light, who has been a real light to us in all of our podcasts and has really been reaching out to so many people. Quanta, go ahead with your question.
Thank you very much. This is wonderful. I have a very brief question. What can Rotary do to create a system process so that interclub, interpersonal, community, national and international levels of peacemaking? Because I think we also need it at the local level too. So I was wondering. Thank you very much.
So first of all, you could invest in our collaboration. I'm just going to get that out of the way because that is something that we are attempting to do, but not only an application of peace building programming, but also we have a really robust education program that is also being featured as a main component of this collaboration between Carter School talent, our professors, and Rotarians who are helping us to design educational supplements to what is already offered by Rotary International in terms of conflict resolution education for Rotarians. But with that being said, one of the more shining star examples I've seen is something that I believe it's Gail Nepper, who is heading up the United States-Russian inter-country collaboration group. She's taught me all about these ICCs that are all over the world between different nations. It's an incredible opportunity to get involved with these kind of cross-border ideas.
We have district governor from Australia, Michael. Go ahead.
Thank you, Arthur, and thank you everyone for such a wonderful event. And I'm here in Melbourne as well with Dorothy, 5 a.m. in the morning. But it's my first ever mega meeting, and I'm truly inspired. In fact, I don't want to waste too much time from all the other amazing questions that are going to come up. But I do want to throw a question to Charles about Dorothy is actually from my district, and District 9800 in Melbourne is a peace builder district. And we know that Dorothy's program is Safe Families, which is all about stopping abuse in families everywhere. And I want to get your thoughts, especially your views around how children being impacted by what the parents do. How does domestic violence play into all of this, and how can we as peace builders around the world really focus on where peace really does have to start, which is at home? Thank you.
Michael, this is an extremely emotional topic for me, not because I experienced domestic violence, but because of just how permeating your question really is to the whole solution of any of these questions that we've been asking today. When children grow up in an unsafe environment, and the very individuals that were literally bred to be their primary caregivers become their primary enemy, that is the very definition of a heinous violation of human rights, and perhaps the primary violation of human rights when a child doesn't feel safe in their own home. And what you see, and I'm a PhD in conflict resolution. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, but I have a lot of friends who are. And I can tell you that this is one of the keys to their entire careers, is what happens to children when they are growing up. And as a result, I would say that two things have to occur from a broad perspective that I address. One is that we have to be more aware when adults commit crimes, grievances, something that's considered conflict. We have to be aware of where they came from as children, because if we're turning a blind eye to how they got there as adults, then we are embracing a terrible ignorance about that. Does it absolve them of their crimes? No. But we can't just continue to think that people who commit terrible acts just sort of do so for no reason, right? So that we have to better prepare ourselves as peace builders to understand that. But then secondly, we have to get really, really serious about the situation in its present form, right? And I think that, you know, one of the ideas that comes from the movie that Arthur shared with me about Gary is this big word in animated letters, law. You know, like we have to get more serious about enforcing this on a global level, that that we have to protect, we have to protect our children in their own homes and in their environments. And until we're willing to give everything we have to that, we can't continue to act surprised when conflict plagues us.
Yeah, you're so right about the need for law so that disputes around the world are taken to court, not to war. What an antiquated system war. It's insane. But now I turn to Pietro, who is with the Rotary Action Group for Peace in Nigeria. Can you go ahead with your question, please?
Oh, wow. Good evening, everyone. Well, I didn't actually have a question, but appreciation. Most of the conversations are one that really germane and resonates with us over here. So I sincerely want to appreciate the organizers, your esteemed self, Eshiri, and the Carter School. I must also add that the Carter School is helping the Nigerian Action Group a lot with addressing our multicultural issues. Many of us may be familiar that Nigeria is highly polarized, and that has caused several issues and root causes of violence extremism. So the Carter School have really been very helpful, especially Professor Otto Romano and Melvin. They've been doing a lot to help us address this, curating and administering training. So I think other people should feel free to reach out to the Carter School as well with various context issues, and they will be happy to help. And of course, if you can invest, why not? It's really a great partnership for Rotary. Thank you very much.
It's really cool to hear from you. I've heard about you in email. Thank you for the introduction there.
To end this before Charles goes, it's so important that we bring Özlem Özerdem on. Özlem Özerdem, as I mentioned, is the fabulous founder of this online collaboration of Rotarians from all over the world. Özlem, go ahead and please share some closing remarks with us before we let Charles jump off the call.
Thank you so much, Otto, and thank you so much, Melanie. And I also want to thank my district governor, Michael Apino, for being on this call, and also my president, Dorothy. Thank God the SAFE family is coming into becoming global and becoming a global conversation. I want to thank everybody for being on this call. I just want to quickly run through the attendance we got in the meeting. During the meeting, we had an attendance of over 340 people at some point. We had over 100 questions. And we also have about 262 district and Rotary clubs that are part of this meeting from over 84 countries around the world. That is really, really outstanding. And we hope that our next mega meeting, we're going to be launching the Safe Families in Rotary. And we're so happy that it's going to be coming from our district governor and also from our president, Dorothy. I want to thank everyone for being part of this meeting. And I wish that you join us in our future meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yay. Now, I just want to say to everybody that this collaboration with Mega Meeting is from we've had these ongoing podcasts. Every one of you, please do come to theworldismycountry.com/club. You can be part of our ongoing podcast. You can get notices. The first 2 months, if you want to enroll in being a member and get special opportunities to ask questions and to interact with all of us, you can actually join free for the first 2 months, and then it's only $10 a month after that. But you can just go ahead and sign up. Whether we don't want money to stand in anybody's way, sign up whether or not you can do that. But your support does make it possible for us to continue to bring these great podcasts from around the world and to cover all these costs of creating mega meetings and Zooms and websites and so on. So we do welcome you becoming a part of our family. In addition to having monthly speakers in the podcast, like the amazing ones we've had today, we also have in between, on other weeks, we have club meetings where you get to interact. The whole meeting is you. You don't have to just raise your hand at the end. You're a part of the whole meeting. We also have we have these socials, but we also have some special movie showings. You'll be able to see The World Is My Country and other movies. And we also have some action days where we follow up on the kind of actions that Charles has been telling us about and that peace builders are doing around the world. So do join us, please, each and every week on the People Powered Planet podcast, and continue to be part of Mega Meeting. Now, Mega Meeting, we are two separate groups collaborating to do this. So when you go to the megameeting.com website, you can also sign up. But there you will also see at the bottom of the page, there's an ongoing WhatsApp group where you can chat with others around the world. And we also have on the World Is My Country page, we have a Facebook group. So you can continue to be part of this partnership. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn to other people who've raised their hand. But first I want to see if Charles has a final word before he has to go to another meeting. Charles?
Man, like what incredible statistics we were just shared. I mean, my goodness, 84 countries. What a shocking thing to just consider the potential that's harnessed in this type of gathering. This will be my fun fact that I share with people from now on, that I've been able to present in front of people from 84 countries. What an incredible thing that you and your team have put together, and a value to our global citizenship. And I really, really encourage that you continue to do what you keep driving, Arthur. Keep doing your thing, because it takes that, as Dr. Susan Allen at the Carter School says, you got to keep showing up. And that's exactly what you're providing the resources and the venue for. So I have been humbled and privileged to be in front of you guys today, and to be able to speak into what I now know to be just a bunch of world changers. As I leave, I do want to point out my colleague Mel Hardy is here. As I leave, he will be the most interesting man in the room. So I do hope you engage Mel. He's a part of the Rotary-Carter Collaboration as well. So I'm going to take off. I do have a hard stop, but again, thank you so much.
One very quick question before you go. Dean Alp mentioned the Peace Week and suggested perhaps we come out and maybe speak there. Can you just tell us briefly about Peace Week, and then we'll let you.
It's a gathering. It's a conference that the Carter School puts on annually, just to feature new thoughts, innovative processes, practices, scholarship from around the world, to sort of just debut and collaborate around these ideas, which you can sign up to attend. It's free of charge, and if your idea is particularly interesting, you can sign up to present. We welcome everyone, and it's just a really cool way to meet people on the bleeding edge of peace building.
Thank you so much, Charles. We're just incredibly honored and moved by all your answers. Were so beautiful. You are a terrific human being, and we are so glad to be collaborating with you now and into the future.
Awesome. Thanks again, Arthur. Take care of yourself.
Mel, please go ahead. Since you're also there at the Carter School, please introduce yourself. Tell us about you and your program. And if Arthur Romano's on, he can also continue. And I'll call on the other people who've raised their hands. Go ahead, Mel.
Right. Thank you so very much. And I actually have Charles, I report directly to him at the Carter School. I have another report on the education side to Dr. Jeff Helsing at the Political Leadership Academy. I have a special approach to peace building that centers this matter of listening. But I also relate through what I call honest broker institutions of the museums and libraries that have reaches around the world. It is my sense that in the theory and practice of peace building and conflict resolution, that some of these honest broker institutions can be levered with Rotary to realize the ambitions that we have through the Rotary-Carter School Collaboration for Peace. So I just want to lift that. This is part of my teaching practice at the Carter School, and I'm just honored to have Dr. Romano and Dr. Davidson as colleagues. I second myself to them. Others were mentioned. Karina Karastelina and Susan Allen were also mentioned. I serve under Dean Alp, but I'm a member of the World Citizen Network. I'm also a member of the Rotary Action Group for Peace. I am a Rotarian, and I thank Al Jubitz for for all that he has done to move this process along. So thank you very much for giving me this welcome.
Wow, that is terrific. Let me actually share my screen a minute. Bullyproof is the tool that I mentioned, and that hopefully maybe we could collaborate with people in Baltimore on it. But it's making conflict resolution fun, and it has these 10 animal characters that help give us the steps for handling conflict. You know, here as you hover over them, when you go to just bullyproof.org, it'll take you here, and you can see Bust Out Bear saying, break away from the current fray. When temper's cool, then make your play. And understand what makes the bully tick. Your brain is better than a big old stick. Listening links. Listen with your heart as well as your ears. Behind the loud anger, you'll hear the doubts and the fears. And then as you come down, you'll see Loving Lion. Love the doer, if not the deed. Look for the good, the inner seed, and Yin Yang Yak, who teaches us to understand the power of opposites and of our balancing our male and female side. And then you go on to picturing porpoise, for picturing the ending, the results we want, originating win-win solutions, rising above the conflict, overseeing owl, originating win-win solutions, and being fearless fox. And these 10 steps have been developed into a teen rap and roll opera, and that has turned lives around. And so we're so interested in collaborating with you on that. But the one last thing I'd like to say before I start my screen sharing is to say that the very first graduate, Diane Laresh, was the first PhD in conflict analysis and resolution at George Mason University. And she was so excited about Bullyproof. She said, whenever I got mad, all my years of conflict resolution training went right out the window. Now I use Bullyproof to anchor my training. I think, B, how can I bust out of this conflict and come at it a different way? U, am I understanding what's going on inside this person? L, am I doing reflective listening? Am I letting the person vent? And she said, anyway, by the time I get to F, my fear and anger are gone. I'm able to handle the situation rationally. It's a great checklist for empowerment.
Anytime you can do either a mnemonic or these alliterative tools that you've used in this Bullyproof, it's simple. The issue of simplicity cannot be overstated. I tell my students, we have to simplify complexity and then complicate the simplicity. Now that isn't linear, but if we think about how we can engage with the simplicity, and this is really a good tool. I'm gonna use it. Thank you so very much.
Oh, thank you. Now I'm going to turn to some of the other people with raised hands. I see, is it Adina or Adina?
Adina.
Go ahead, ask your question or comment.
It's more of a question comment. So I'm also at the Carter School. Actually, I've been there for 25 years, but usually work off the radar, as you can tell, since nobody knew. But I'm Israeli also originally, and been working for many years on peacebuilding stuff related to the Middle East and beyond. And right now I have a proposal that's waiting to be submitted to Rotary, actually. So I'm just, since so many of you are here, including my colleagues from the Carter School, with whom I'll connect later. I'm working with Palestinian colleagues on a project that involves Rotary at the high school, university, and beyond university levels, with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as one of the main elephants, not even elephants, but in the room. But beyond that, on how to engage on difficult issues. It covers a lot of the things that a lot of people have mentioned here. And we're working already with a few Rotarians. I don't know if they're on this call or not, but if anybody is interested, it's literally, we have a proposal that's going to be sent soon. Like I said, it involves working on the high school, university level in Northern Virginia, DC, maybe Maryland and West Virginia, all around where Rotary clubs and Rotaract clubs exist. So I heard some interesting things here that I incorporated into my notes. But if anybody else is interested in talking more besides my colleagues, or in addition to my colleagues at the Carter School, please let me know, or I don't know. I'll put my email in the chat, and if anybody has direct you know, if this is directly relevant to something you're interested, I'd be happy to talk more about it.
Excellent. Well, I hope to bring you in our next podcast with the Carter School. So thrilled to meet you, and thank you for that. Also, do email me, Arthur Kanegis at Gmail, with a little more about you and your program so we can include you in a future podcast. Now I see that Michael has his hand raised. Michael has been working on this question of digital identity and the world passport. Go ahead, Michael.
Yes, thank you so much, Arthur. Yeah, we have a startup where we have a project to create a digital version of David Gallup's World Citizen Passport. David, who spoke earlier. The World Citizen Passport is so powerful as an identity document. So David has been sending these out across the world to applicants to provide them with documents. But we want to jumpstart this into the digital world by creating a digital version of the passport. And so we're looking for collaborators and partners and anyone who's interested to join us in this quest. And if you look in the chat, I referenced the Universal Identity Council, which is also in Washington, D.C. It's uidc.org. And Mariana Dehan is the founder and leads it there. And she also has a new documentary movie, which I referenced, is Shadows in the Dark movie, and I believe it's available now on Prime as well. So please check out those resources and reach out if you're interested in joining our quest.
Okay, thank you, Michael. It looks to me like we're able to close the meeting. Anybody with a last-minute question or comment that wants to raise their hand? Otherwise, I'm just going to thank everybody, saying this was extraordinary. Do you have a quick question before we sign off, or a comment?
I just wanted to thank you and all the speakers and all the attendees so much. I'm moved to tears personally by this meeting. I'm so inspired by all of you and the work that you're doing. Sometimes as peace builders, we can feel quite lonely on the front lines of our unique niche of work. And to come together in this way and hear of the incredible, inspiring work you're achieving and what's already here, as Dr. Romero pointed out, is heaven on earth happening now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheva, and we would love to have you as a volunteer, as a collaborator. Again, please do sign up to be a regular part by joining the People Powered Planet podcast. You can also, theworldismycountry.com and click on the podcast. Well, thank you, everyone, for being part of the People Powered Planet podcast. I am so awed to have so many fantastic peace builders from around the world joining us in this wonderful meeting, and I look forward to seeing each of you again and again and again as we work together to save this precious blue planet, to carry on the work that Jimmy Carter said, to rise above the nations that divide us and see ourselves as world citizens, to have the courage that he had to step outside that role of identity with one nation and say, I'm talking to you as a world citizen. If we can all talk to each other as world citizens, then we can create law above the nations that divide us. Then our voices and our words, when they come together as a planet, can create law. Law grows out of we the people, and this is we the people gathering to create a way that we citizens can outlaw war and build peace. Join us in this adventure. Thank you, everybody, and come back each week and every week to the People Powered Planet podcast.
World citizen, lift up your voices. Oh, you know we got something to say. All we need is the same directions, heading in one way.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our channel and like this video.